going to go first. Well, yeah, go ahead.
Joe, tough luck. How disappointing was today, given you've worked so hard with yourself back in the test over yesterday?
Yeah, it was frustrating. We obviously knew how important that first hour was in particular. 10 overs leading into that newborn and managing that well initial. We knew it was going to nip around a bit again, and there was that extra bit of bounce and zip with it being a little bit harder. So it was really important that we got there unscathed, and unfortunately losing those 3 wickets ahead of that was bitterly disappointing, because we had put a lot of good work in last night. We built that big partnership, and it was really on me and Dawood to make the most of that opportunity this morning. Credit to Australia, they put ball in good areas. It can be frustrating sometimes. You feel like you've played extremely well and you make one mistake and you're back on your way. So they're the harsh lessons that we've learned throughout this test match. Credit to Australia taking every chance that's come their way. And I can't say the same about ourselves. So I look back at this morning with a little bit of disappointment, but ultimately, when you're 40 for 4 in the first innings, it's very difficult to get back into the game. And when you create as many chances as we did with the ball and not take them, it's very difficult to look back at just this morning and think that that's where the game was lost for us.
And Joe, just to surmise a couple of your big decisions for the game, leaving out Broad and Anderson and thinking there, and also batting first, how tough was that?
I think batting first was the right decision. If you look at how the wickets unfolded, I think, as I say, being 40 for 4 makes it not look the case. And credit for us, Australia exploited those conditions a little bit, but it did quicken up, and we showed that we could create chances that second day. And as you saw today, it didn't start misbehaving a little bit more. You look at getting 250 even in that first innings, and the game looks very different altogether. So now I look back at the toss, and I think I'd have done the same thing. I think, speaking to Pat, he would have done the same thing as well. He'd have batted first. So I'm not too worried about that. In terms of selection, I wanted a balanced attack, wanted to be able to change the momentum of the game, and we went with the spinner. And credit to Australia, they took on Leachy. He had to bowl on that wicket at his worst. I felt facing Nathan last night, as quality as he is, it felt like you could score quite freely off him and you could rotate off him on that surface. And probably actually put a lot of that on myself, being slightly too aggressive with his fields early on, didn't let him get into the series and get into the game, and made it very difficult for him from that point onwards. So probably more on my shoulders there and how I managed him, rather than looking at the selection of how we went about things.
Just one more, if I could. Can we assume that Broad and Anderson will play in Adelaide? And is it now, given the rough treatment that Jack Leach copped, is it now unlikely that he will play in Adelaide?
I think now is completely the wrong time to start talking about selection. I think that's something that we'll look at once we get to Adelaide, once we know what the surface looks like and what the conditions are likely to present when we get there. But it's nice to know that they should be fit and available and ready to go, fresh, for those conditions if they're required.
There have been a few batting collapses, of course, and much publicized as well. So some of the dismissals in this game as well, we just think, put it down there. I don't like to use the word soft dismissals, but they were just thinking of batters getting in and getting out. So is this something you would want to address a lot more and figure out why that happened?
I think isolating this game, I think managing the bounce on this wicket is something that we didn't do well enough. I think we could leave the ball with that extra bit of bounce here, probably slightly tighter at times. And I think we nicked balls not because of lateral movement on occasions, but because of extra bounce, playing slightly away from ourselves, where in our own conditions we don't face that, and I don't think we quite managed that as well as we could have. Something that we'll look at for other venues that might be slightly similar throughout the series, but it is generally quite unique to playing here at Brisbane. But as always, when you're into a series and you draw from your experiences and you look to get better and improve and learn from them, and that's exactly what we'll have to do from this game. I think the most important thing is, after that first innings and the way that we played, it'd have been very easy to go out there and look like rabbits in headlights and think, oh, the game's over. But I think we showed good character, good fight and skill as well to get ourselves in a position where we were still in the game coming into this morning. And it's just bitterly disappointing that we couldn't follow through on that and get ourselves to a total where, even 170, you're in with the shout. Is it the pressure of batting last on that wicket? You start to see it go up and down a little bit more. It could have looked very different, especially with one not coming out to bat first up. It could have created something for us. And I think we'll take confidence from that. And when guys do score runs within your team, it can draw confidence to others as well. So it's important that we look to try and do that going into the rest of the series too.
Just speaking of taking confidence from, last summer, Australia had this massive win in Adelaide, and then India came back and put a lot of pressure on them. Can you take some confidence from them? Are there things that you notice there where could target them?
I certainly take confidence from it. I think more than anything is there were periods of this game where we showed that we're more than capable of getting on top of Australia. We just didn't do it for long enough. And we're always behind the game after that first hour of the Test match. We've got to make sure that we keep parity and get ahead of the game early on in the game, or early on in the next, or the first session of the next game, and then back ourselves to take those opportunities. When you create as much as we did with the ball, look at Mark Wood, 23 times he beat the bat in his first 24 overs. That's impressive. We're doing a lot of things right. The way Ollie Robinson bowled and changed the game with that spell just after the break. We're not far away. I'm not just trying to make things up. I genuinely believe that if we take our chances better and we handle that initial first innings better, we could be sat here in a very different position.
Joe, you won't have long really to dwell on this loss now because it is such a short turnaround. I guess away from the cricket side of it was a pretty tough defeat straight up after all you've been through as a squad, quarantine, everything. How do you kind of, from a morale perspective and away from that, get the group ready for Thursday and have them coming out firing in Adelaide after a pretty heavy defeat?
I think we're game hardened now. We're in the series, and we've not had that going into it, so we'll be better for it. We've got something to work from for those guys that have not experienced this before. They know what's coming now. They know what's likely the challenges they'll likely have to face. And we've got to be ready for that. But ultimately, sometimes that game coming around quite quickly is exactly what you need. You want to get straight back out there and you want to put things right. And that's exactly the approach that we need to take.
Joe, it was Cameron Green who got your edge among this bowling attack. If the rest of you faced a lot, he's someone you wouldn't have seen. What did you make of him specifically as a bowler having seen him for the first time?
Yeah, I think he bowled well. I think he bowled well throughout the whole game. And I thought for the majority of it, we managed him pretty well as well. Slightly different action to the other guys, so just trying to get used to that is. It's nice to have that in the bank now ahead of the rest of the series. But we knew he was a talented player, and his performances in state cricket and the start of his international career have been pretty good. So we'll be better for having faced him and come across him now.
Joe, in terms of your own batting, you seem to score more runs forward a little bit than perhaps usually. Do you feel as though you've got a game plan that's working for you in Australia? And secondly, I suppose you must be keen to get that mark off the back line and get the 3 figures over here.
This tour is not about me getting 100 in Australia. This tour is about us winning. I know that if I make big scores, then we give ourselves a better chance. But I look at the way I played this innings personally, and I felt like that was the only real chance that I gave to Australia. And sometimes that's how it goes. You look as well as David Warner played, we gave him 3 or 4 chances. Give someone like that many chances, is going to make big runs, and that's how cricket goes sometimes as a batter. I know I'm capable of scoring out here and making a big score. I'm obviously coming off the back of a very strong year with a lot of hundreds behind me, so just got to get myself in again and just do it for longer.
Ben Stokes is obviously a match winner for you. What did you make? Did you turn the 3 looks obviously like he's had a bit of an injury there for a little while and didn't have much influence on the game, I guess, and will he be fit for Adelaide?
I'm pretty sure he'll be fit for Adelaide. One thing you write Ben Stokes off at your own peril. He'll be desperate to get back into this series and have a big say in how it all turns out. Like a lot of the guys, not had much cricket Even you look back at when his last game was, it was right at the start of our summer. So it was always going to be a challenging week for him physically, and to come back in and expect him to win the game. Of course, he's capable of doing it, but the fact that he hasn't, the fact he's now got a game under his belt, he'll be, I'm sure, be wanting to have a big say now moving forward.
Okay, we're going to try Zoom. I think we've got a few little technical issues, but we'll give it a go. Hopefully, Rory, you can hear us. You want to go ahead, please?
Give it a go. Thanks, Joe. Joe, you made quite a brave team selection, and it was quite a brave decision at the toss also. Do you feel like the way forward is to keep being brave in this series now and not react to this by playing safe?
Absolutely. I say if we go about things exactly how we did it on the last two tours, we're going to get the same results. We have to be brave. We have to look to do things differently to previous tours. And I look back at the toss, as mentioned earlier, I think it was the right decision. We just didn't play well enough in that first innings. And we get some sort of a score on the board. You saw how that wicket started to behave today. We're looking at a very different contest. So in terms of selection, we could have gone a different way. We wanted variety in our attack and wanted different ways of changing the pace of things. And credit to Australia, they managed that pretty well throughout the game.
We'll take three more. I think Stefan from the BBC, then Rob Forsyth. Go ahead, Stefan.
Hi, Joe. Given what's happened on the past couple of tours, England fans might be forgiven for thinking, here we go again. Given what you've seen this week, can you say that we won't have a repeat of what's happened over the past couple of tours?
Well, that's enough of a motivation for us as a squad more than anything, is to make sure that isn't the case. And as you've seen in the recent couple of years, this team has generally responded to difficult defeats with some strong results, and we'll have to do exactly the same on this tour.
Rob, AAP.
Hey, Joe.
One more. Rob. Go ahead.
Sorry, you go, Stephen.
Thank you. And you've talked a lot about all the planning and practice that's gone into this tour. Why was now the first time for 5 years not to field an England team with one of Jimmy Anderson or Stuart Broad in it?
Sorry, can you repeat that question, please?
I said, you've talked a lot about the planning and the preparation that's gone into this tour. Why was this test match the right time to go into a test for the first time in 5 years without both or one of Jimmy Anderson and Stuart Broad?
I think more than anything is you look at Jimmy's position coming into the game, and it was a huge risk to play him. We saw in the previous Ashes series when we went in and we was 50-50 on, or not quite 100%, the impact that had on the rest of the series, and Jimmy Anderson being available for as many test matches as possible is obviously really important to us as a team. The other thing is we've also got to make sure that we're constantly winning and trying to gain confidence that way. And in our own conditions in particular, those two have been fantastic for such a long period of time. Trying to balance that up with preparing for this series is something that we're trying to manage as best as we can. And I think we've done that as well as we possibly can. One thing I would say is that you can't question the guys that were out there this week. Our seam attack in particular, as I said, have created so many chances and given us a great opportunity. We just weren't good enough to take them. When you're creating that many chances and that amount of pressure for long periods of time, as a fielding group, you've got to make sure that you take those chances when they come, just as Australia did to us. And I think that's the most important thing to draw from this game, rather than looking at selection.
Thank you.
Last question, Rob, please.
Hey, Joe. Appreciate that the technology issues sort of didn't have a huge bearing on the test, but we were a bit stunned to see so many sort of problems, and particularly a test match of this kind of profile.
It doesn't affect you out there on the field, but apart from the review systems going down, I don't think it actually had an impact on the test match on this occasion. It must be frustrating for fans watching around the world, but from a playing point of view, it didn't really have too much of an impact on the actual game itself.
Okay, I think we're done. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time. Thank you.